Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. It's recruiting intel. We know we got a game tomorrow in just about 23 hours. I think maybe even 22 hours now that I think of it. But we got some recruiting storylines to talk about, of course, not only just from what we're picking up here in Atlanta, but looking ahead into the 2026 recruiting cycle. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, head to InsideTexas.com and get all the best Texas Longhorns inside intel. Get a week of access for just $1. Justin, I have to go to the East Texas Bureau because we have to talk about an East Texas guy, and then we have to talk about a Georgia guy who you were able to see in person. I'll go ahead and say I was able to see Michael Terry in person. So we've got Lance Jackson, we've got Justice Terry, we've got Michael Terry, all on campus. We've also got Cole Brevard and Brad Spence with the team from the transfer portal. All these guys who are going to be big parts of Texas' future and 2025 roster are already on campus. And what were some of the things that Lance was really excited about when talking here in Atlanta, just about being able to be on the roster?
Yeah, it's funny. Lance was in school less than 2 weeks ago. And I fully expected to see him in Orlando. I thought he was going to be at the Under Armour event he was scheduled to. And then as soon as that game was over, he was moving into Austin within the next couple days. But Texas called, and Mama called. And when Mama calls, you got to come home. And so Lance made it to Austin. They needed some D-line depth, and it was big time. Really, really big for those guys. And he gets to get in there and get his feet wet. Like, he was fired up with the opportunity. He had spoke to the media. He was fired up that they let him do that. Texas let him do this. Like, he didn't know he was going to be able to participate in this kind of stuff. Same thing for Michael Terry and Justice as well. And so Lance is just, God, these kids are so motivated, guys. They're skipping half their senior year. Then they're skipping their all-star game just to be a tackling dummy at practice. And you know what? That's why this team is where it's at. That's why this program is where it's at. That's why, how many signees? 23, 24 this class? 20 are early enrollees. Yeah. That's just how this culture rolls. And you got to give Sark a lot of credit. These mental evaluations are strong. And if you think about it, Lance Jackson committed early. Sark doesn't push for early commitments. Was that not the easiest recruitment we have ever covered? It was Texas, and he was done. And for a 5-star, that is uncanny. So Jackson's getting rewarded. He's getting some D-line work. Justice Terry's getting some D-line work. Michael Terry's playing out there at wide receiver a little bit. It's just a testament to Sark's evaluations, kind of the culture they built around, and allowing those guys to come in and kind of get their feet wet because, hey, a couple guys went to the portal. So Justice Terry's some depth now. Lance Jackson is some depth now, not for the Peach Bowl, rather, but for scout team in the practices.
Right. At this point, Sark talked and said that, look, we needed bodies. Like, we needed guys on this team because, Tia Savea is on his way out. Even Justice Finkley is on his way out. Both are still with the team. But they needed guys at that position. So they get to, have full practices. But, Coach, how important is it for these early enrollees just to be able to learn how to do this, how to do the college football thing, especially as they're getting ready for a playoff game?
No, it's huge, right? Because experience is experience, and you're learning just how the Texas culture really is. You spend all these months getting to know kids, tell them how you can develop and how you can coach it, but now you actually get to see it. But now these coaches can see these kids interacting and see them going through practice and, okay, he is what we thought he was, right? And so for them, you're already gaining trust. You're already gaining a little bit of buy-in from the coaching staff, like, we can count on this kid maybe next year, right? And so I know these practices, they're not fully padded up maybe, and they're not taking everybody to the ground and hitting, but you're still learning. You're learning the individual. You're learning the technique, how they coach, and the language and the terminology that they use. So it's really, really huge if you can get there early. It's already an advantage when you can get there in January, right?
Right.
So getting there for a bowl game or in the playoffs, That's even better, man. So these kids will the learning curve is like just accelerated a lot, and so it's really really huge for those guys, for the players and the coaches actually.
We know that Brad Spence is going to be a linebacker, Cole Brevard, defensive lineman, Justice Terry, defensive lineman. Michael Terry is starting out at wide receiver. And then, Justin, we got some insight from Pete Kwiatkowski about what Lance Jackson, who is, getting closer and closer to 280, what he's going to be doing position-wise and why he's going to be able to do fit the role that Texas wants him to in their defense.
Yeah, because I mean that's something I think we talked about later in this cycle, because Lance kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I don't know if we envisioned him at 280 at the end of his senior year. But maybe we should have, because he's a big boned boy for the longest time. Obviously he's going to start out at edge, but here's the thing: you put 20 pounds on that guy, that's 300. You're starting to play in the interior now. You're starting to look like an Alex Okafor type body, and you'd have to adjust accordingly. But you know what? The thing about Lance is he trusts PK fully. Do what you need to do. Develop me the way you need to develop, because he knows he's going to help him get to the league. And so I think that's the biggest question is going to be for Lance in his first year. How big does he get coming out of spring? They want to add a little bit of functional mass, but at the same time, he gets over 3 bills. We're probably talking about another position in another year. Maybe not this year, but maybe in 2026. And so it shows how much versatility the kid has, because here's the thing. He can play offense if he needed to. This kid's a tremendous tight end. I saw a couple clips of him catching the football over the side. Did y'all know that he got to wear the number 10 jersey in practice? I thought that was a little unique that they let him wear number 10 during practices. He wants to wear number 15, but he's going to have to wait for Wild Bill Norton to mosey on to the NFL before he can get that one. But yeah, at the end of the day, Edge is his spot. That's his spot right now. I believe it's more of like a Baron Sorrell analog, kind of on his side of the field. But again, we're going to be talking about this all year. If he gets 290, 300, what position are we going to be talking about then? Either way, you got a superstar that's going to be on that front 4, front 7. And honestly, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to try to bulk him up that much.
No, they can't.
They're going to try to lean him up, get that muscle going. But I don't think they're going to try to add all that much weight onto him, because you look at him, he's already 280-ish, 270-ish.
And he doesn't look 280-ish.
Right. And so they want him playing jack. You could tell, or I could tell, talking to Pete Kwiatkowski when I asked him about Lance Jackson. It's like, hey, that big guy from Pleasant Grove is walking around, and PK just kind of lights up. Like, he knows that he's got a special player there to help him out.
Think about that too, Joe. PK has been recruiting Lance since he was a head coach at Washington. They have a very symbiotic relationship, and I think that's one of the reasons he lights up.
Before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor. That is Game Time. Fellas, I don't know if y'all have looked, but it is really easy to get into Mercedes-Benz Stadium right now for Wednesday's game. So if you want to kick off the new year with the Longhorns in Atlanta, go ahead and go to Game Time. Game Time app, gametime.co. Use the promo code ON3. You can use that to get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Heck, that $20 may make you be paying single-digit money to get into the game. It's not hard to get in Mercedes-Benz, and let me tell you, it is a great place to watch a football game. So head to Game Time. Use the Game Time app. Use the promo code ON3. Get $20 off your first purchase. You can use it for this playoff game. If Texas prevails on Wednesday, get into the Cotton Bowl. Use it for that one. Or if you want to go back to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, go ahead and use it for that one. So ON3 as your code, $20 off your first purchase, and terms apply. Thank you to Game Time for sponsoring our show. Got a couple comments. Justin and Katie 35.
Anthony Davis Jr.
Yeah, Anthony Davis. Are these guys package? Could they be a package deal for Texas? Love both of them. They look like thumpers. Grayson kids, correct?
Yeah, they both play at Grayson. I highly doubt they're a package deal, but they both really, really like Texas. And so it's one of those where it could be a package deal, behind the scenes, but that's not how these two kids are rolling. I think Texas is in a tremendous spot with Anthony Davis Jr. He's been on campus before. He got kind of an earlier offer than some of the other 2026 linebackers. I got to see him in person. I mean, he's just twitchy. He's got some Maurice Blackwell, man. He is just a hybrid, twitchy thumper of a kid. Tyler Atkinson's one of your bigger kids. That kid is already kind of big, and there's been some talk that he may be maxed out athletically, but he is still a gapper. This guy shoots gaps. This guy, he never gets caught in the wash. He sheds. Like, this dude is – I think he's 17 already, and he is just he's just built. You can tell. And I met his dad, unbelievably nice guy. And he's a big guy too. So Tyler may have some growth there still going, but I have a sense that Tyler may stay closer to home. And I don't have any, it's a year from that signing class, so I have no breaking news. But I get the sense he might stay closer to home, where Anthony Davis told me he wants to leave home. He wants to go as far away as possible. When I met him, he was wearing USC gear. And so it just kind of and it kind of showed you that, hey, I don't necessarily have to play in the state of Georgia. Some of these kids, a la Justice Terry, don't mind leaving the Peach State and kind of, forging their own path. And so right now, they could be a package. They're not a package deal in any sense, but Texas is in a great spot for both of them. Both of them are going to be on campus for Junior Day whenever Texas does set that date. But I like where they stand with Anthony Davis a little bit more today than I do Atkinson.
Coach, when we think about guys from Grayson, and especially, Atkinson, who is going to be probably the most sought-after linebacker in his class, how much does having someone maybe like Nick Brooks from the previous class help in a certain sense? And I know Joseph Mbacho ended up at Florida.
Yeah. How
much does a little bit of familiarity, both with Brooks and Mbacho, and then even going back to, the connection that Kenyatta Watson Sr. I know he's at Auburn, but that's a guy who you like having in your back pocket at Grayson. How much do those connections still help Texas in trying to get guys like Atkinson and Davis?
It helps a ton, because those kids are going to reach out and say, hey, Brooks, how's it going down there at Texas? Like, they're going to want to know firsthand exactly how it goes. And it's like that with any program. You get the Duncanville kids still talking to the Duncanville kids in high school that's at Texas, like, hey, how is it? So everywhere you go, they're going to lean on Big Brother Brooks and say, how is it down there in Texas? Like, truly tell me how it is. And Brooks can give them honest feedback about, hey, man, I'm loving it here at Texas. The coaches are really real, like, this is a great culture, great program, and they can just relay that information. So I think it plays a huge part in the recruitment process, because now you got somebody that you trust telling you that outside of coaches who can tell you, you can walk on a yellow brick road when you get to Austin. It just depends. And so hearing real information from somebody that you trust and know is really, really huge in a recruitment.
Yellow brick road. I haven't heard that one. I may start lifting that from you. Going through a couple of comments. Can players enter the portal, or do they have to wait till the spring? For everybody who is not a playoff team, the deadline is passed. But I think there's a different window for Texas players if they so chose. That may be a good idea for us to write a story about, Justin. We may have to do that.
I think they can enter the portal, say after the playoffs or whatnot. But I don't know if they may have to wait until the next opening. We do know there is a spring opening. Last year, that's when the top D linemen actually started coming off the board. But that's a good question for a story. Absolutely.
I think On3 had something about that. I'll dig it up. So check Inside Texas soon. It's crazy watching Oklahoma get players from Kennesaw and the Gorillas. That's Pitt State up in Kansas. They're in trouble.
One of my good buddies was a kicker for them.
At Pitt State?
Yes, at Pittsburgh. And was Dennis Francione the coach?
Tim Beck, but it was a different Tim Beck.
Yeah.
It's the Tim Beck who's at Vanderbilt right now.
Yep.
Not the Tim Beck that's head coach of Coastal Carolina. I remember driving through Central Texas. I saw a Pitt State Gorillas flag flying. I'm like, how? why? Like, why?
They are good in D2.
They are.
They are a D2 power, just because they know how to.
The operative word there being D2.
Exactly. Here's an interesting one. Coach, I'll throw this your way. Why do you think Texas doesn't try to get kids from Pennsylvania or South Carolina? Each state's a little bit unique in situations, but take that where you want to go. Why do you think Texas may not go up there very often?
Might just be a region that you have like connections with. A lot of times coaches lean on connections in the states they have and the players they know, right? If they call a coach in California, they can trust the coaches at modern day's word and say, hey, this kid can really, really play. Not saying the kids in Pennsylvania and South Carolina can't play. It's just like you got to build a pipeline and relationship there. I'm sure if there was a top kid in the nation there in South Carolina or Pennsylvania, Texas would be like, all right, let me make a call. Let me go take a visit, right? We went all the way to New Jersey, right? We went to New Jersey and found players. And so I don't see why it would be any different from Pennsylvania, South Carolina. We thought if there was a guy that they thought could really, really play and help the Texas program, I'm sure they would recruit him. So it really just depends on relationships and building a pipeline.
Hey, if they have the number 1, number 2, or number 3 defensive tackle happens to reside in Pennsylvania or South Carolina, Texas is going after him. So It really just Coach is right. It's pipelines. It's familiarity. It's connections. It's also talent. And Penn State, I mean, Pennsylvania's got talent. South Carolina's got talent. But Texas knows they can go get them possibly closer, possibly to better connected schools. Again, number 1 receiver shows up in South Carolina, Sark's going to show up. Number 1 quarterback shows up in Pennsylvania, Milwaukee's going to show up. So when you see some of those highly rated, when Texas they're in cherry picking mode now in 2026. If you see a few highly rated guys from that region, guess what you're going to see? You're going to see Longhorns driving through there.
One of the things, like Pennsylvania and South Carolina are very different situations. Like Texas has connections in Georgia, and I know there's still a state line, but Georgia and South Carolina is not very far. That's in your southeast sphere. You can say we play Georgia. We play.
Yeah, South Carolina's not far at all. Yeah,
you play South Carolina hypothetically at some point. Like you're in that sphere. Pennsylvania is just kind of a little bit of a different world almost, and that's where a lot of Penn State's obviously got a connection there. But you're fighting a Big Ten battle, and you're fighting on road turf. You're not within your conference footprint, so a little bit different.
And Joe, don't forget, and it's nothing against the state, but in the 70s, it was ridiculously loaded with high school football talent. Like Pennsylvania was one of the top 3 or 4 states in the country. You had Dan Marino, you had Jim Kelly, you had Tony Dorsett. Like you had guys that went to teams and won national championships at the college level. We haven't seen that star power from Pennsylvania in a long time. South Carolina's pushed some kids out. Jadeveon Clowney, Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, there's some dudes that's come out of South Carolina. But Pennsylvania, it's been a minute since we've seen the actual, highly rated guys coming out of there. It's amazing that Penn State competes like they do within the state.
They do well. Pitt does well. West Virginia kind of is up there. But, there are a lot of programs. And, a lot of programs that you have to fly past who play in that footprint for you to get to Texas. So,
that's substantial.
Before we get out of here, we got to talk a little bit about Justin, some of the battles, and Charlie, some of the battles in the 2026 class. Texas is going to be recruiting against a lot of big powers over the next few months. Junior days are going to be competitive. Official visits are going to be competitive. But Texas always has recruiting rivals in Texas A&M and in Oklahoma. And so who are, and Coach, if you got any on this one as well, I think you wrote up some insight about a very highly ranked 2026 wide receiver and all-purpose guy. Like, who are some of the guys who Texas A&M, and Oklahoma are really going to be all competing for here in this 2026 cycle?
Oh man, look, you got a ton of guys. Look, first I'll start with the number 1 offensive lineman. I'm sure everybody's going to come out to John Turntown. Like that's just a no-brainer. Then you got a really good running back out of Forney, Texas, in Javion Osborne, right? And I know it's top 2. He said to make top Texas and Michigan, but it's not going to stop A&M and OU from coming after him, right? I mean, he's right here, not too far from home. And then you got Nelson Peterson Adrian Peterson's younger brother playing quarterback. Of course, we know Adrian played at OU. So those are two that I can think off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's plenty more. Even Zayden Crimper out of Prosper, the offensive lineman. He'll be another guy at A&M. He's visited A&M so far, and I want to say he's visited Oklahoma. So, and he loves Texas. But, yeah, I mean, those are three guys I can think of off the top of my head.
I'll throw some more at you. Caden Finley, wide receiver out of Aledo. Yeah. A&M is pushing for him. I don't think they're making much noise. OU is definitely pushing for him. I think they're in a good spot. Texas remains in a great spot. DeQuivius Beck, best talent in East Texas for 2026. That's going to come down to Texas, Oklahoma. We got to come up with a little nickname or something for that, because so many recruitments in this region come down to that triangle, those three schools. DeQuivius Beck is going to be one that, and I actually think A&M's in a great standing with him right now. KJ Edwards, tailback. That's three guys. That's three teams. If you were to tell me ask me the top three of KJ Edwards, I'd tell you Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. He's got a teammate, Kip Lewis, that's up there at OU that is having a great time. A lot of family connections at Carthage to the Oklahoma Sooner football program. And then, KJ's been on campus with A&M. A&M loves KJ so much, they threw his baby brother an offer as a true freshman before he played varsity. J.D. Edwards, who, matter of fact, will be a Texas offer in the next year or so, and will be a four-star and will be a force to be reckoned with. And so, just off the top of my head, there's a handful there as well. I'm curious to see how this plays out. We'll have more of this because we're going to do a story on this, and we'll really see it coming out of junior days, because last year it was the O lineman, it was the elite O lineman, it was Haywood, it was Fasusi, it was all those big boys. Where are they going? Lamont Rogers kind of guys, where they're going. More of those recruitments are going to come out. I think with A&M, I think A&M's climbing. And I think Mike Elko will have a really good class this year. They already have a great start to this cycle. And so I think that's going to be something Sark's going to have to counter. With Oklahoma, man, it's going to be hard to sell in Norman in this next class. The OC problem, the DC problem, the Venables problem, the living in Norman problem. Like, there's a lot of things stacked up against you. And so it's going to be really interesting to see if Texas and Texas A&M can kind of separate from being in those OU recruitments. Regardless, the Sooners are all over DFW. Yeah. They will always get their handful of those guys in that region. But, yeah, off the top of my head, those two Carthage guys, DeQuivius Beck and KJ Edwards, those three schools are probably the leaders for that guy. Like I said, there'll be more that comes out, but Jalen Lott comes to mind. I mean, I know Oklahoma's pushing him hard. I know A&M has flirted with him a little bit, but he's kind of in the Caden Finley category for me. I think he's Texas to lose in a sense. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to keep coming to Inside Texas, because Joe gave me this idea for the story a few days ago, and we're going to put something good together, because I think it's going to be interesting to teach all the fans kind of what direction is going to happen in early 2026's class.
Coach, any other big ones? I know Texas has its 2026 quarterback, so I'm not going to have to compete there. But Texas still has a lot of room to grow in that 2026 class. They got Chris Stewart, they got Diabell, that's it. So there's going to be a lot of competition. Anybody else that comes to mind?
As far as athletes or kids, I can't think at the top of the head, just but those three who compete now to Texas A&M and OU all together, right? There's going to be a ton of kids, I'm sure, that hit the board later on. And as kids decided, hey, I want to go and play out of state, I want to go here and there, teams will reshuffle their boards. I'm sure there'll be some recruiting battles as we go.
Exactly. I'm excited to see what happens maybe with those Prosper kids, because you got one on his way to A&M. I forget his name. You have the legacy.
They dropped Connor Carty.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Good point.
Which
so he's
going you drop a guy in an O-line, potential O-line powerhouse building?
Yeah. So he's going to Tech, and Zayden Crimpen,
Bryce
Gilmore.
Yeah, like, they've got more guys. Actually, I think the younger guys are better than the older guys.
Yeah, they are.
Exactly.
Really
so
I'm a big fan of Crimpen. Big fan. Hey, Crimpen ain't easy.
There we go. I wanted to coax that out of you before we got out of here.
I want to say one thing before we take off. Hey, viewers, give our boy Pete Nakos, give him a little bit of a break. He's doing his job. He's reporting what he reads, what he hears, what he knows. He's one of the best in the business, and let me tell you, he's a really good guy. Also, don't pay attention to it. Quinn's going to the draft. So don't waste any of your time, energy, or any of that kind of stuff. I have a pretty good source on that one. So that just let up on our boy Nakos. Dude does a great job. Nakos. I'm going to figure out how to say his name. Greece. I know that. If his first name was Petro, it'd be a lot easier.
It's one of those things where he can have that offer.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be accepted for any reason. So that
there's a plan
in
place, and there has always been a plan in place.
Exactly. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for making this the best video and the last video of 2024 here on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. Give us a like, give us a subscription. Also, make sure you head to InsideTexas.com. We're going to have we'll be here tomorrow. Going to have full pregame, postgame, everything coverage on this channel. Alexander may even get a little bit involved in the coverage as well.
He's working on some recruiting right now. I've got him working on some 2032 and 2033s. We're building those relationships early.
Love it.
Yeah. Hey, when Baby Gronk needs an offer, we know who to call. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.